Hello everyone, welcome to episode 58 of the EMDR Doctor Podcast. I'm Dr. Caroline Lloyd and it is a really sad week in Australia at the moment, just following on from the Bondi terrorist attack a couple of days ago. I was planning to do a bit of a light and breezy podcast today in the lead up to Christmas, but somehow that just feels kind of wrong and misattuned to our community here at the moment. I live in a very Jewish area and I have Jewish friends, colleagues and clients, and I just feel so sad for the whole community here and of course in Sydney. And I want to express my sincere condolences to everyone who lost somebody that they love. This event is the biggest single loss of life that we've had since the Port Arthur massacre back in 1996, so it feels kind of important to pay tribute to. And I'm not going to make this whole episode about that event, as plenty of people in the media are doing a lot of that already. And also, I am a pacifist and I just don't believe in generalizing characteristics or motivations to a whole race that belong to just a few individuals, and I'm not really a political animal, so I don't want to get caught up in the politics of it, but I do want to extend an invitation to those who are suffering as a result of this event. I am a little bit involved in a couple of networks who are offering group EMDR sessions, so I wanted to let you all know about some offerings for a free online group EMDR session coming up. For therapists, I will be running a group on Tuesday the 23rd of December from 7 till 9 p.m, which will be online. And for the Jewish community, I'll be doing an in-person session on the 8th of January. So I'll put some details into the show notes, so if you do feel the need for this kind of help or assistance, please do get in contact. So I thought I would speak a little bit about Group EMDR again today, as it is kind of on my mind at the moment. And the GTEP protocol is the one that I am trained in. GTEP stands for Group Traumatic Event Protocol, and it was originally created by Ilan Shapiro in 2013 in order to help large groups of people in the early days after a traumatic event to help prevent the mental health issues that often follow a disaster. We aim to process the recent event and reduce the distress associated with it in order to reduce the traumatic stress and promote resilience and encourage healing. And there are several recent event protocols in the EMDR world, and they do all use bilateral stimulation, which is mainly self-administered. So what does that mean? So that means instead of doing EMDR one-on-one with the therapist leading the eye movements with their fingers or with a pointer, the person is doing their own bilateral stimulation, either tapping on their shoulders. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see me tapping on my shoulders, or you can tap on your legs, or people can do their own eye movements, either following their hand, tapping from side to side like that. You can see my eyes following my fingers, or by picking two spots on a wall and just allowing the eyes to move in between those two spots. So the process is led by a therapist, usually it's an EMDR therapist, but in some cases, in remote areas or where there are not very many EMDR therapists available, it can be led by a layperson who is trained in the protocol. And the protocol is deliberately a little bit restricted so that the client or the person who's doing the work doesn't open up too many other distressing memories. One of the important things to know about group EMDR is that unlike other group therapy, that you might have attended or seen on television, there is no talking about the trauma. We do not discuss our experiences, and this is mainly to avoid traumatizing other people with the details of our distress. So it is not a debrief, it is not a discussion, there is no advice given or received from other members of the group, and we are not putting people at risk of additional trauma. We don't want them going home feeling worse than they felt when they arrived, and with details of somebody else's pain kind of lodged in their head. So I, as the therapist, if I'm leading the group, I actually have no idea what memory or image the participants are working on. And there is no need for that disclosure. So long as the client knows, I do not need to know. So there's no vicarious trauma for the therapist either. And what about results? In general, with my online groups, I find that most memories lose the majority of the distress that's associated with them. How do we know that? Well, we measure the distress with SUDS, which stands for Subjective Units of Distress. So at the beginning, we ask, how distressing is that memory out of 10, with 10 being the worst and 0 being no distress at all, completely calm and neutral? And often people will start with maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10. And we go through the process and they work through it all, and they might end with a 0, which is ideal, or maybe a 1 or 2, which is certainly acceptable. So 1 or 2 out of 10 is very minor disturbance or minor distress. And so they finish up much less sad, much less angry, much less fearful or ashamed or lonely or desperate or whatever it was that they felt about that memory at the beginning. So these great results, reducing the SUD, the distress, from a 7 or 8 out of 10 to a 0 or a 1 or 2, are pretty normal, and they are backed up by research. So there are quite a few studies now showing that GTEP can reduce the pain of difficult memories in various groups, like migrants in refugee centres, and healthcare workers online. That was another study that was done during COVID. And groups of carers in adolescent residential units, just to name a few. So I personally have used it with staff at Cabrini, and I've used it online in my private online groups, and also with a group called Mums Matter Psychology. I hold sort of semi-regular courses through Mums Matter. And I've used it in the inpatient setting at Cabrini with groups of women who all have very different kind of traumas. And now I'm looking forward to using it with people following this terror attack. And I am aware that saying that I'm looking forward to this sounds a little bit disingenuous, sounds kind of weird and maybe a bit macabre, but it is a valuable skill and it's a valuable therapy to do, and I feel that I have something to offer that will help people. So it is a little bit rewarding to do this kind of work, even though it is really sad and difficult. So this is not exactly what I thought my last week of work would look like, just coming into Christmas. But the world changes pretty quickly, and sometimes we just have to pivot. So for all of you listening to this in the week before Christmas, I hope you have a wonderful, peaceful, connected holiday season. I hope you have a break and a rest and a chance to settle after the year that was 2025. Thank you for listening to my podcast and supporting me and giving me your time and attention and your beautiful questions and your wonderful feedback. I really do appreciate all your time and attention. All the very best to you and your loved ones, my friends. And take good care. I will talk to you again in 2026. Bye for now.